The year is 1944, and the frozen expanse of the Ardennes Forest is choked with the iron breath of the Third Reich's final gamble. Deep within the snow-laden pines of Belgium, the geopolitical scales of the Second World War hang in a precarious balance as the German Wehrmacht launches its desperate counteroffensive. In this desolate theater, 25 Tiger I tanks of an elite heavy panzer battalion sit idling, their Maybach engines coughing rhythmic plumes of exhaust into the sub-zero air. The German commanders, hardened by years of mechanized slaughter on the Eastern Front, oversee a force that represents the pinnacle of mid-20th century engineering, yet they are haunted by the specter of failing supply lines and the encroaching Allied pincer. Suddenly, the atmospheric pressure shifts with a violent, localized crack of displaced air, and the smell of ozone cuts through the scent of pine and diesel. Emerging from a shimmering distortion in the forest clearing is a singular, massive silhouette that defies the logic of 1944. This is the M1A2 Abrams, a 70-ton predator from a future century, its desert-tan hull a stark contrast to the winter camouflage of the German Panzers. The roar of its 1,500 horsepower Honeywell AGT 1500 gas turbine engine is not the clatter of pistons, but the terrifying whistle of a jet, a sound that strikes immediate, primal confusion into the hearts of the German tankers who mistake the anomaly for a secret Allied wonder weapon. The technical disparity between these two eras of warfare is a chasm wider than the decades that separate them. The 25 Tiger I tanks are formidable relics of the Steel Age, protected by 100mm of face-hardened steel on the frontal hull, and armed with the 88mm KWK-36 L56 gun. These machines rely on optical sights, and the manual calculations of their gunners to find their mark at distances rarely exceeding 2,000 meters. In contrast, the M1A2 Abrams is a masterpiece of composite metallurgy and digital integration. Its armor is not mere steel, but a classified matrix of depleted uranium, ceramics, and Kevlar, designed to defeat kinetic energy penetrators and chemical energy warheads that have not yet been invented in 1944. The American crew, seated within their spall-lined sanctuary, views the battlefield through forward-looking infrared sensors and second-generation thermal imagers that render the pitch-black Ardennes night into a high-contrast map of heat signatures, while the Tiger commanders must stick their heads out of cupolas to navigate the fog. The Abrams commander uses an independent thermal viewer to designate targets for the gunner in a seamless hunter-killer cycle. However, the Abrams is a creature of high-maintenance logistics. Its turbine engine consumes fuel at a rate that would bankrupt a division, and in this displaced reality, it has only half a tank of JP-8 remaining. The 25 Tigers, though primitive, possess the endurance of a force integrated into their own timeline, while the lone modern tank represents a miracle of power that is tethered to a ticking clock of resource depletion. As the engagement begins, the first contact occurs at a range of 4,000 meters, a distance at which the 88mm shells of the Tigers could not even hope to scratch the paint of their adversary. The Abrams gunner, peering through the thermal display, sees the glowing white blocks of the German engines through the dense tree line. With a whisper of the fire control computer, the laser rangefinder returns a precise distance, and the 120mm M256 smoothbore cannon barks with a concussion that shatters the frozen windows of nearby farmhouses. The first round is an armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot, a dart of depleted uranium traveling at over 1,500 meters per second. It strikes the lead Tiger I squarely in the frontal plate, passing through the 100mm of steel as if it were parchment, exiting the rear of the engine block and burying itself deep in the frozen earth behind. The German crew is killed instantly by the overpressure and the pyrophoric effect of the uranium dart. Panic ripples through the German formation. The remaining 24 Tigers fan out, attempting to use the undulating terrain of the Ardennes to close the distance, their commanders screaming orders over radio frequencies that the Abrams digital suite easily monitors as garbled static. At the same time, on the left flank, a A platoon of 5 Tigers attempts a flanking maneuver through a shallow ravine. The Abrams commander, utilizing the intervehicular information system, tracks their movement with cold, mathematical precision. The tank pivots on its tracks, the turrets slewing at 40 degrees per second with a high-pitched electronic whine. As the Tigers emerge from the tree line at 1,800 meters, they finally open fire. The 88mm shells strike the Abrams turret face, but the composite armor absorbs the energy completely. The German projectiles simply shatter or ricochet into the sky, leaving nothing but minor scorch marks on the chemical agent-resistant coating. The Abrams responds with 3 rapid shots of M830A1 high-explosive anti-tank multi-purpose rounds. The explosions are catastrophic, the shaped charged jets boring through the Tiger turrets and detonating the stored 88mm ammunition racks, sending heavy steel turrets cartwheeling into the snow. After 3 hours of continuous fighting, the field is littered with the burning husks of 15 German tanks, yet the crisis of resource depletion begins to take hold. The Abrams fuel gauge flickers toward empty, and the turbine's thirsty roar begins to falter. The remaining 10 Tigers, led by a veteran commander who has realized that Tan Ghost cannot be harmed from the front, begin to coordinate a swarm tactic. They utilize the thick smoke from their fallen comrades to mask their approach, crawling forward through the slush and mud. Inside the Abrams, the atmosphere is tense. The air filtration system hums, but the crew knows that if the engine dies, they lose their hydraulic power and their thermal advantage. As the sun disappears beyond the horizon, the darkness becomes total. But for the Abrams, the world remains a neon green theater of death. The climax of the battle occurs in a narrow valley near a bridge crossing. The last 10 Tigers charge from multiple directions, hoping to overwhelm the modern tank's reload cycle. The Abrams loader, working in a frantic rhythm, slams 120mm canisters into the breach. At a range of 500 meters, the Abrams fires an M1028 canister round, which discharges over 1,000 tungsten balls into the path of a charging Tiger. The effect is like a giant shotgun, shredding the external fuel tanks, optics, and tracks of the German machine, rendering it a blind, immobile metal coffin. However, the Abrams engine suddenly sputters and dies, the last drops of fuel spent. The turret slows as it switches to auxiliary battery power. 2 Tigers emerge from the shadows at less than 100 meters, their long barrels leveling at the thinner side armor of the Abrams. The German gunners, sweating despite the cold, pull their firing lanyards. The shells strike the side skirts, but the heavy ballistic skirts and the internal Kevlar liners prevent a full penetration of the crew compartment. The Abrams, though immobilized and silent, still has its battery-operated coaxial M240B machine gun and the commander's 50 caliber M2. They rake the vision slits of the remaining Tigers with armor-piercing bullets, blinding the German crews. In the final psychological state of the conflict, the German survivors are broken. They have faced a demon of steel that cannot be killed by the greatest weapons of their age. The remaining 3 Tigers retreat into the woods, leaving the Abrams a silent, unmoving monument in the center of a graveyard of 22 smoldering Panzers. The American crew sits in the cold, dark silence of their high-tech tomb, victorious but stranded in a century that is not their own. While the echoes of the 120mm cannon shots linger over the Ardennes like the ghosts of a future war.